Text today, 1 Timothy chapter 6. Some verses from that text. Sermon is hearses. Hearses with trailer hitches. Paul said to Timothy, he said, "Yet true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. After all, we brought nothing with us when we came into this world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave it. So if we have enough food and clothing, let us be content. But people who long to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And some people craving money have wandered from the true faith, pierced themselves with many sorrows. Teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. Tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. And by doing this, they will be storing up their treasure as a good foundation for the future, so that they may experience true life." Hearses with trailer hitches. A person named Nasreddin Hoxha. Nasreddin Hoxha, born in what is now Turkey in the early 13th century, quite some time ago. Well, this Nasreddin, he quickly developed a strong reputation as a quick wit and a man not to be fooled with. He was loved by the common people for putting rich people in their place, and also he had his humor and his trickery that was very endearing to them. But mostly, he was mostly known for deflating pompous windbags. I know that there's none of those here, of course, especially me. But one of the stories that we're told about this Hoxha concerns a beggar. Hoxha just simply means teacher. The beggar was given a piece of bread. Poor person, homeless beggar, given a piece of bread, but no butter or jam or sauce to put on it. Well, hoping to get something to go with this bread, this beggar went to a nearby inn and asked for a handout. Well, the innkeeper turned him away with nothing. But the beggar, he snuck into the kitchen where he saw a large pot of soup cooking over the fire. And he held his piece of bread over the steaming pot, hoping to capture maybe a bit of the flavor from that good-smelling vapor coming off of this soup. Well, suddenly, the innkeeper seized him by the arm and accused him of stealing soup. "I took no soup," said the beggar. "I was only smelling the vapor from it." "Then you must pay for that smell," said the innkeeper. Well, the poor beggar had no money, so the angry innkeeper dragged him before the judge. Well, now, Nasreddin Hoxha was at that time serving as the judge, and he heard the innkeeper's complaint and the beggar's explanation. "So, you demand payment for the smell of your soup?" asked the Hoxha after hearing this. "Yes," insisted the innkeeper. "Then I myself will pay you," said the Hoxha. "And I will pay you for the smell of your soup with the sound of money." So the Hoxha pulled 2 coins out of his pocket, rang them together loudly, and put them back in his pocket, and sent the beggar and the innkeeper each on their own way, paying for the smell of soup with the sound of money. Very, very, very much like Solomon in my mind, with that kind of wisdom. Verse 10 of our text today, and the lectionary has us here talking about money today. "For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people craving money have wandered from the true faith, pierced themselves with many sorrows." You know, what else but the love of money can explain why the greedy shopkeeper or the innkeeper would want to charge a poor beggar for the smell of his broth? But, you know, in the world that we live in today, that just wouldn't surprise me. It just wouldn't surprise me at all. Verse 7, Paul said this to Timothy, "After all, we brought nothing with us when we came into this world. We can't take anything with us when we leave it. And put another way, there are no trailer hitches on hearses out there, okay? They just don't come like that. Or if you saw my picture that I sent around the email, I guess you could put a trailer hitch on a hearse maybe, but it looks awfully silly to be towing a boat with a hearse because you can't take it with you. You know, I have to be honest, sometimes I hate the way we live in this world today. Sometimes I just don't like the way we live. You all know that, you know, I just recently sold my house, and I had to, when I sold the house, for me it was a big house at least. I had to clean out 25 years of stuff in that house. Some of the stuff was carried from one location to the next. And some of the stuff accumulated over the last 13 years that I've been here. So there was some stuff. I had been, weeding it out over the past couple of years, thinking that this day might come. But yet still, there's so much. And all of this stuff was no longer useful to me. None of it was part of my daily life anymore. And I needed nothing from it to live each day. And I hadn't used any of it really in years. But there it all was. There it all was staring at me. Getting into my head thinking, take care of us, take care of me, you need to get this done. And there it was doing this. And at that point in time with my stuff, I had to come to the conclusion that, stuff, I can say it out loud, stuff, I'm sorry, but this is the end of the road for you. I know it's been a good 25 year, it's been a good one, a good run here, but I needed to downsize. I needed an amount of things, I guess, that would fit into like a 2-bedroom apartment, that size. And what I had compared to what I could take with me, well, it reflected the imbalance of this modern life that we live in the world today. And I would have to say that I'm pretty conservative, in the things that I have and the monies that I spend. I can't imagine that's someone who's not the amount of junk that they have in tow, stored somewhere or everywhere or maybe way too many places. Well, here I was looking at the stuff, and I had to repeat to myself over and over again, you can't take it with you. You can't take it with you. And that had more than one meaning. I can't take it with me when I move, and I can't take it with me in the end either. It's just not going to happen. I said it to myself over and over again, and that's what I was just saying and encouraging myself with as I sorted out the stuff. Old bedding and blankets. Kids' clothes from when they were toddlers. Endless toys and stuffed animals and trinkets and this and that and the other thing from here, there, and everywhere. All of it infused with rich memories and attachments. But none of it useful in a practical sense in my life ahead of me. So out it went. Well, I sold some of it this past year. I gave some of it away. I put some of it in the free room of the dump, so maybe some of you have some of my stuff, right? Because I know most people here frequent the free room of the dump. Who doesn't like that place? It's great. I'm staying away now lately. I've been I look in the door, I'm like, no, I'm not even going in. Just looking from the outside here. I'm not going to go in and get tempted by anything in there because I don't need it. Anyway, I put some in the free room, and then I had to make the hard decision, and I hated this decision, to get a dumpster and have it dropped in my yard. I had to do it. There was just no other way that I could have accomplished what I needed to accomplish. So I got this medium-sized dumpster dropped in the yard, and then I proceeded to fill the dumpster to the rim with stuff. With stuff that I just had no destination for this stuff. And when I stood back and I was sweaty and I was tired from going up and down the cellar stairs a million times, it seemed like, as I hauled armload after armload to the huge metal rectangular modern trash can, again, that gets hauled away in the back of a truck, I really felt a deep disdain as to how we live our lives today. That, me personally, I can contribute to landfill or wherever this stuff goes, I don't know. probably landfill, and I contributed a dumpster's worth of landfill in this world because of all the stuff that I have and the stuff that I threw away. Our endless consumption of throwaway goods, our needless hoarding of things and stuff, our compulsion for cashing as much as we can in this world. I truly felt grief at parting with so much of it. I felt like I was throwing part of my life away. But I couldn't take it with me. So I had to cut it away from me and saw it away. It felt jagged and difficult. And what I kept, I hauled it away in a trailer and put it into storage until I got settled into a new place. And driving back and forth from the house to the storage locker, I got thinking about, that old expression again. You can't take it with you, but yet there I was, taking it with me. Well, the ultimate meaning of that expression, of course, is that you can't take anything with you when you die. Or more humorously, there ain't no trailer hitches on hearses, as we like to say. Of course, accepting that picture that I sent around earlier in the week. But, the statement isn't meant to be taken literally. It's not about trailer hitches on hearses, because it means, obviously, you can't take anything with you after you die. Well, we've all heard and maybe told the stories of some people who've tried to do this. They have, had their money sewn into their coffins behind all the cushions and padding in there. So they got buried with all their money, and supposedly that was taking it with them. Well, in a sense, maybe that could be true, but really no one would feel like that's a legitimate exception to the rule of verse 7 of our text today that Paul so eloquently puts, maybe even a rephrasing of Job's word too from the book of Job. We brought nothing with us when we came into this world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave it. We came into this world empty-handed. We shall leave life empty-handed. But we cannot survive empty-handed in the interim between those 2 points of our lives. That proverbial dash in between the 2 dates of the tombstone. We need a certain amount of money and stuff within that dash to survive. But a problem arises with this need. The problem that arises is the need, as the need grows and grows, that need of things grows and grows far beyond what the need actually really is, what our actual needs are. That need that's in that dash between the 2 dates, that need eventually changes to want. And want has no limits. We want more and more, and somehow it seems right, and we feel even entitled to have more and more, because you can never have enough security in this insecure world that we're living in. So we go about our lifelong task of trying to nullify all of those what ifs in this life by having more and more and more than enough to hold up to life's buffeting, to brace against the storms of this world, like a hoarder saving years of newspapers or hundreds of jars because, well, you might find a use for them someday. You never know. Who knows? We're comforted by our stuff, by all that junk that was down in my basement. I had a comfort knowing that it was there, my possessions and my wealth. And the more stuff and the more wealth, the more comfort, or so we hope. Of course, Paul would say otherwise in verse 9 of our text today. People who long to be rich fall into the temptation and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction. And I guess I felt some of that this past spring when I had to go through what I had to go through with all my stuff. You know, they say, you know, the old expression, money talks, right? Money talks. And as for me, with my kids in college, money usually says goodbye. That's what it says to me on the way out. But you know, to not have lots of money is, it's actually in so many ways a blessing. It really is. Paul said it in verse 6, true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. It's great wealth to not have the burden of wealth, financial wealth, or as the immortal words of Janis Joplin, freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose, right? If you got nothing to lose, then you're free of all those things that would entrap you. I think that was Janis Joplin, wasn't it? Yeah, I believe it was, yeah. Because money can be a prison of fear. Prison of fear, that's what money is. And the fear is the fear of losing it. Well, I have it. What if I lose it? You know, the stock market is volatile again, and people are commenting on how much they've lost on paper, and it makes people quite nervous, especially those who are hoping to retire some century. You know, whoa, where did it all go? Fear of losing it. And the most fearful of everyone, all of us, are usually the ones who are richest. It's ironic, but that's how it works. Because it's never, ever enough. Never enough. We always seem to want more. You know, I don't think God is anti-rich, as some people think God is. I don't think he's anti-rich at all. You know, like we should all be taking vows of poverty if we're going to follow Christ, like a monk or something in a someone in a monastery. But I do think for sure that God is very clearly anti-love of money. Not anti-rich, but anti-love of money. And there's a difficult line between those two. It's a fine line, really. God is anti-depend on money and wealth for our security. That's what God is against, because we'll always replace God with that dependence. It's kind of either or. It's very difficult to depend on our stuff and our money and to depend on God at the same time. They exclude one another. And God knows that. Paul knew that too in verse 17. He said, teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives all we need for our enjoyment. You see how the two cannot exist together. They can't coexist. Trusting in God and trusting in money. You notice what Paul doesn't say here in this text. And this is like, whew, for us in America, because we're all pretty much rich in this nation anyway, if you want to compare it to everybody else. Paul never says that the rich should give it all away. He does not say this in this text. But what he does seem to say is that the rich should let go of their white-knuckled death grip on their wealth. Because in the end, we can't take it with us to buy our way into heaven. It just doesn't work that way. And by the way, for all of you thinking about this, giving it, all to a church or a ministry in the end, which many people are fond of, before you die or after you die, still does not translate in a heavenly ticket to ride. It doesn't work that way. It can't get us through the gates of heaven. So before you're thinking about doing that, just don't even worry about it. It doesn't work that way. God is not impressed with what we leave behind to church organizations. So Paul is saying something here. Paul is saying, do not become obsessed with wealth and stuff and things. Verse 8 again. So if we have enough food and clothing, let us be content. You know what this reminds me of? Who saw the Jungle Book here? Disney's Jungle Book? The movie The Jungle Book. Come on. Yeah, come on. You can sing it with me. Big old Baloo, the bear. Bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I always, that song pops into my head because I think my kids watch it 1,010,000,000 times. So those things just will never go away from me. But it's the same thing. If we have enough food and clothing, let us be content with the bare necessities. And big old Baloo, he knew the secret. He knew the secret to life. Money is strange after all, isn't it? Money is really weird. It's odd. I mean, it's kind of creepy because pieces of paper, well, they used to be pieces of paper. Now they're just numbers on a screen somewhere. It's not really worth anything. It's only worth something because the government says it's worth something. But really, it's worth nothing. Well, it's gold that's worth something. It's a rock, okay? Gold is only worth something because somebody says it is. But really, all it is a rock and a piece of paper. Think about it. There are people who use up their entire lives making money so that they can enjoy the lives that they have entirely used up already. And they get there, they've used it all up, and okay, now it's time to enjoy it, and now there's no enjoying going on. Or maybe there are some, like good old Jeff Bezos with his $450 million yacht. Maybe he can't live without that. I don't know. Maybe we can't live without our fishing boat being pulled by that hearse in that picture that I sent around. And you might say, I don't have much. I'm actually poor, I don't have much at all. And maybe you kind of are comparatively to people around, but it's all relative. For example, if you make $14,500 a year, you are very poor in America. You're very poor in America, but not if you live in India, where the per capita income is just north of $2,000. So you're doing pretty well. According to the Remember the Poor website, if you made $1,500 last year, you're in the top 20% of the world's income earners. The top 20% of the world's income earners at $1,500 a year. Still think you're poor? No. If you have sufficient food and decent clothes and live in a house or an apartment and have a reasonably reliable means of transportation, you are among the top 15% of the world's wealthy. Do you have $61,000 in assets? Just $61,000 in assets? I'm not talking about cash, liquid cash. Assets. You're among the 10% of the richest adults in the world. Top 10% in the world. If you have money saved, a hobby that requires some equipment or supplies, a variety of clothes in your closet, 2 cars in any condition, and live in your own home, you're top 5% in the world. In the world! And if you have more than $500,000 in assets, you are the richest 1% of the world. And I dare say that most people in America, at least, people that would tell you advice at least, would never dream of retiring with only $500,000 in assets. And say you need much more than that if you want to retire and live a decent life here in America. It's not enough. We're all wealthy. I tell my ethics students this up at the college. Every semester I say, if you are living in America, you have won the lottery. You have to understand that. If you don't understand that, you need to travel someplace other than America to understand that you have won the lottery. And what are you going to do with that winning? You're going to hoard it and guard it and put fences around it, machine guns, and hold on with white knuckles saying, this is mine! Drag it around with you from place to place in the form of everything and its brother. The poor in America who are living off the system are at least in the top 15% of the world. That's how it is in this nation. We don't realize. We don't realize unless you leave, unless you go and look, you don't realize. Paul said in verse 18, tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. By doing this, they will be storing up their treasure as a good foundation for the future so that they may experience true life. There's no trailer hitches on hearses. You can't take it with you, but you can use it to make a difference. You can take people with you when you go. When we are rich in good works and generous to those in need, always ready to share with them, we're reaching out to them with the love of God, which can change their life for all eternity. Often when I officiate at funerals, and I've done a zillion of them, I will say to the people gathered there that there is something that you both leave behind in the end, and you can take with you when you go. There is something, and hint, it's not wealth or stuff. It's love. Love is really the only thing that we leave behind, and it's the only thing that we can take with us. You leave love in the wake that spreads out behind your life like the wake of a boat in a lake with the waves going from shore to shore. That's what you leave behind, the wake of love in your life. And that love changes people's lives forever. And you take love with you because, how do I know that? Because God is love. And God is forever. Therefore, love is eternal as God is. And you know, there ain't no trailer hitch to pull that love behind you on your way. You don't need it. The love that we give, the love that we share, God's love, it has no end. It never accumulates into a burden and then winds up in the dumpster because it's no longer useful. We should never, ever hoard it. As hard as it was to get rid of so much stuff when I moved and tear those things away from my soul, it was freeing as well. At the same time, it was freeing. Because the real stuff in life, all the good stuff, it's not in a basement or in boxes or in bins. It's all that good stuff is stored in a full heart. And there's always, always room for more. You know, my heart is full from the people in my life and that mean the most to me, and you're all part of that. My heart is full with all of that. You know, there are lots of people in this world with only a piece of bread in this life. And as the innkeepers of our lives, we would do well to not only let the beggar smell the soup, but to pour that beggar a bowl of soup too. And even beyond that, maybe sit down and eat with that beggar, to befriend them, and to realize that we are all brothers and sisters on this earth. And the true treasure in life is not in a bank account. And it doesn't get thrown into a dumpster when we no longer need it. The true treasure in this life is love. A love that we can only experience when we realize that we need. Everyone needs love. And we need to share it in order to have it. That is the treasure that's worth pursuing. That is the true life that Paul talks about, that you can actually take with you forever. Verse 19 again, we'll end with this. By doing this, I will add you will be storing up treasure as a good foundation for the future so that you may experience true life. Can you stand with me?